The massive auditorium stretched across 3 city blocks, its crystalline dome catching the light of 3 suns that painted the sky in shades of amber and rose. 50,000 beings filled the seats, representing every major civilization in the Galactic Federation. Their excited chatter created a symphony of clicks, growls, melodic tones, and electronic hums that echoed through the vast space. Admiral Zephyra stood at the central podium, her blue-scaled hands gripping the edges as she surveyed the crowd. The Aquarian's gill slits fluttered slightly, betraying her nervousness despite decades of military service. This was the most important recruitment ceremony in Federation history, and she knew billions more were watching through quantum-link broadcasts across the galaxy. Citizens of the Federation, her voice boomed through the translation matrices, automatically converted into thousands of languages and communication methods. Today marks the beginning of a new era. The Galactic Defense Academy opens its doors to the most promising young minds our civilizations have to offer. The crowd erupted in applause, tentacles slapping together, wings beating approval, and various species expressing joy in their unique ways. But Zephyra's attention was focused on the stage behind her, where 500 cadets stood in perfect formation. These weren't ordinary recruits. Each one had been selected from millions of applicants across the galaxy. The tall, proud Centaurians with their golden manes gleaming under the lights. The sleek Vorthan delegates, their silver skin seeming to flow like liquid metal. The massive Kronthak representatives, each one standing nearly 3 meters tall with arms that could crush steel. The delicate but brilliant Etherians, floating inches above the ground in their environmental suits. And there in the back row stood Marcus Chen. The human looked impossibly small among his fellow cadets. At barely 1.8 meters tall, he was dwarfed by most of the other species. His brown hair was neatly trimmed, his olive skin unremarkable compared to the exotic appearances around him. He wore the same gray cadet uniform as everyone else, but somehow it seemed to hang differently on his ordinary frame. Several Centaurian cadets near him exchanged amused glances. One, a particularly large specimen named Valorian, leaned toward his companion. "Look at the little Terran," he whispered in his native tongue, not bothering with translation. "How did something so primitive make it through the selection process?" Marcus understood every word. Earth's education system had made polyglot abilities standard among their military candidates, but he kept his expression neutral. He'd heard worse during the 3 months of preliminary training. Admiral Zephyra gestured toward a massive device that dominated the left side of the stage. The quantum resonance scanner stood 10 meters tall, its surface covered in intricate patterns that seemed to shift and flow like living circuits. Ancient Forerunner technology, recovered from ruins older than most civilizations, it was the only device capable of measuring what the Federation called combat resonance, the mysterious quality that separated great warriors from ordinary soldiers. "The scanner has tested over 1 million candidates across the galaxy," Zephyra announced. "It measures not just physical capability, but the quantum signature of an individual's potential in combat situations. Their ability to process information under stress, make split-second decisions, and maintain effectiveness when everything falls apart." The crowd leaned forward in anticipation. Everyone knew the stories. The scanner had discovered legends like General Korath the Unstoppable, whose resonance reading of 847 had made him the greatest Kronthak warrior in history. Admiral Scylla's of the Etherian fleet, whose 723 reading had predicted her tactical genius. Even Admiral Zephyra herself had scored 691 when she was tested 40 years ago. "The average Federation citizen scores between 100 and 200, Zephyra continued. "Our current cadets here today have all scored at least 400 to qualify for the Academy, but we have discovered something unprecedented." The auditorium fell silent. Not even the translator matrices made a sound. "For the first time in scanner history, we have a perfect score. Someone among these cadets has achieved a reading that shouldn't be possible according to our understanding of quantum combat resonance." Excited murmurs rippled through the crowd. The cadets on stage straightened, each hoping they might be the one. Valorian puffed out his chest, certain his Centaurian heritage made him the obvious candidate. "We will now conduct public readings for each cadet, in the order they were selected," Zephyra announced. "The scanner will reveal not only their scores, but project a probability matrix of their potential battlefield performance." A holographic display materialized above the crowd. ready to show the readings to everyone present and the billions watching across the galaxy. The first cadet stepped forward, a young Vorthan female named Solaris. She placed her hand on the scanner's interface, and the device hummed to life. Patterns of light raced across its surface, and within seconds, numbers appeared on the holographic display. Solaris of Vorth Prime, Zephyra announced. Combat Resonance 456, Projected Specialization, Electronic Warfare and Systems Infiltration. Applause filled the auditorium as Solaris stepped back, her silver features glowing with pride. One by one, cadets approached the scanner. Each reading brought new excitement from the crowd. A Kronthak named Brutus scored 523, specializing in heavy assault tactics. An Etherian called Whisper achieved 487, with projections showing exceptional reconnaissance abilities. The readings continued for hours. Most cadets scored in the 400s or 500s, impressive by any standard. A few exceptional individuals broke into the 600s, drawing loud cheers from their species representatives in the audience. Then Valorian stepped forward. The Centaurian moved with predatory grace, his golden mane catching the light as he approached the scanner. He had been recruited from the prestigious Centaurian War Academy, where he had never lost a single combat simulation. His family line included 3 of the greatest Centaurian generals in history. He placed his hand on the interface with absolute confidence. The scanner hummed louder than it had for any previous cadet. Patterns of light swirled faster, creating complex geometries that hypnotized the watching crowd. When the reading finally stabilized, gasps echoed throughout the auditorium. Valorian of Centaur Major, Zephyra announced, struggling to keep the awe out of her voice. Combat Resonance 734, Projected Specialization, Multi-Theater Command with Exceptional Tactical Adaptation. The Centaurian section of the audience erupted in celebration. 734 was higher than most active admirals. It suggested the potential for legendary status, the kind of score that appeared perhaps once in a generation. Valorian returned to his position with a smug smile, accepting the congratulations of nearby cadets. He caught Marcus's eye and smirked. The message was clear: this was what real warrior material looked like. More cadets followed, but none came close to Valorian's score. The crowd began to murmur that they had witnessed the perfect score Zephyra had mentioned. Several reporters were already composing stories about the young Centaurian who would reshape galactic military doctrine. As the line of cadets dwindled, Marcus found himself among the final dozen. He had volunteered to go last, claiming he wanted to learn from watching the others. In truth, he was trying to delay the inevitable embarrassment. Humans were still considered a minor species, barely a century into their Federation membership. Most of the galaxy saw them as enthusiastic but limited, good for manual labor and basic infantry, but lacking the sophisticated capabilities of older civilizations. Finally, only Marcus remained. The auditorium had grown restless. Many spectators were already preparing to leave, satisfied that they had seen the day's main event in Valorian's record-breaking score. The human was just a formality, a token representative from a species too new to have produced anyone truly remarkable. Marcus walked slowly toward the scanner, feeling 50,000 pairs of eyes watching his every step. The device loomed over him, ancient and imposing, its alien geometries suggesting technologies beyond human comprehension. Behind him, he heard Valorian whisper to another cadet, "Watch this. The primitive probably won't even register a proper reading." Marcus reached the scanner and stopped. For a moment, he simply stared at the interface, a smooth panel covered in symbols that seemed to shift whenever he wasn't looking directly at them. Admiral Zephyra's voice carried across the auditorium, though with less enthusiasm than she had shown earlier. "Our final cadet, Marcus Chen of Earth, please place your hand on the interface." Marcus took a deep breath and pressed his palm against the panel. The scanner went silent. Complete, absolute silence. No humming, no patterns of light, no movement whatsoever. For 10 seconds, nothing happened. The crowd began to murmur, wondering if the device had malfunctioned. Then it exploded into activity. Light erupted from every surface of the scanner, patterns moving so fast they became blurs of color. The humming returned, but deeper, more resonant, as if the device was straining against some massive force. Warning lights began flashing on control panels that hadn't activated for any previous cadet. Technicians rushed to their consoles, checking readings and running diagnostics. The holographic display flickered and wavered, unable to process whatever data the scanner was generating. "What's happening?" Zephyra demanded, her calm demeanor cracking. The head technician, an elderly Etherian named Quintus, floated between his instruments with increasing panic. "Admiral, the scanner is. It's cycling through every protocol we have. Combat assessment, strategic evaluation, psychological profile, even theoretical frameworks that haven't been used since the Forerunner era." The patterns of light on the scanner's surface began to form recognizable shapes, tactical diagrams, weapon schematics, battlefield maps that shifted and evolved faster than most beings could follow. It was as if the device was running thousands of combat simulations simultaneously, testing every possible scenario it could imagine. Marcus stood perfectly still, his hand pressed against the interface, his expression calm despite the chaos erupting around him. He could feel something flowing through the connection, a strange sensation like electricity but warmer, more alive. Images flashed through his mind, battles fought in vacuum and atmosphere, fleet engagements across star systems, ground combat in environments he had never seen. "Sir," Quintus called out, his voice high with stress. "The scanner is accessing historical military databases, theoretical combat models, even classified Federation defense protocols. It's building something, but I don't know what." The crowd was on its feet now, pointing and shouting in dozens of languages. Many were trying to leave, frightened by the device's unprecedented behavior. Others pressed forward, desperate to see what was happening. Suddenly, the scanner's activity intensified even further. The patterns of light became so bright they were painful to look at directly. The humming rose to a crescendo that made the entire auditorium vibrate. Then, just as suddenly as it had begun, everything stopped. The scanner fell silent. The lights faded to their normal dim glow. The only sound in the massive auditorium was the gentle hum of ventilation systems. Marcus lifted his hand from the interface and stepped back. Above the crowd, the holographic display flickered once, twice, then stabilized. Numbers began to appear. The first reading was standard enough. Marcus Chen of Earth, projected specialization. But then the display went wild. Instead of showing one specialization, dozens appeared. Ground combat, naval tactics, aerospace operations, electronic warfare, logistics, reconnaissance, command structure, psychological operations, diplomatic strategy, resource management, technological adaptation, and dozens more. The list kept scrolling, adding new categories that most beings had never heard of. But it was the combat resonance score that made the auditorium fall into absolute silence. The number that appeared was impossible. It violated every understanding of how the scanner worked, contradicted centuries of testing data, and challenged the fundamental assumptions about what quantum combat resonance could measure. 9,847. Admiral Zephyra stared at the display, her gill slits opening and closing rapidly as she struggled to process what she was seeing. Around the auditorium, 50,000 beings sat in stunned silence. Across the galaxy, billions more watched in disbelief through their quantum link connections. Valorian's golden face had gone pale. His record-breaking score of 734 suddenly seemed trivial, a child's accomplishment compared to what the display was showing. But the scanner wasn't finished. New data began appearing below the combat resonance score. Probability matrices that showed Marcus succeeding in scenarios where failure should have been certain. Tactical adaptations that incorporated technologies and strategies from every major civilization, plus dozens more that the scanner seemed to be inventing on the spot. Most disturbing of all were the psychological profiles. The scanner was showing that Marcus possessed not just exceptional combat capability, but a type of cognitive flexibility that allowed him to understand and adapt to any opponent, any situation, any challenge. It was as if his mind was wired differently, capable of processing information and making connections in ways that no other tested species had ever demonstrated. Dr. Lyrale, the Federation's chief military psychologist, was among the observers in the VIP section. An Etherian like Quintus, she had spent centuries studying the psychology of warfare and had helped design many of the scanner's evaluation protocols. She floated toward Admiral Zephyra, her voice trembling with excitement and fear. "Admiral, if these readings are accurate, we're not looking at an exceptional soldier. We're looking at something that could reshape military doctrine across the entire galaxy." Zephyra turned to stare at Marcus, who remained standing calmly beside the scanner as if nothing extraordinary had happened. "Doctor, in your professional opinion, what are we dealing with?" "I don't know," Lyreley admitted. "The scanner is showing capabilities that shouldn't be possible. It's not just that his scores are high, it's that he's scoring high in areas that contradict each other. Perfect tactical precision and intuitive creativity. Ruthless strategic thinking and deep empathy. The ability to command massive operations while maintaining effectiveness in individual combat." She paused, studying the data streaming across her portable analyzer. "Admiral, according to this, he could learn any military skill from any species, adapt to any environment, and develop countermeasures for threats we haven't even discovered yet. The scanner is projecting that he could successfully command everything from a single infantry squad to a multi-species galactic fleet." The implications hung in the air like a physical presence. If the readings were accurate, they weren't just looking at a gifted cadet. They were looking at a potential military leader who could unite the Federation's diverse forces in ways that had never been possible. But questions remained. How had a member of such a young species developed these capabilities? Was this normal for humans, or was Marcus an anomaly? And most importantly, what did this mean for the balance of power in a galaxy where military strength determined political influence? Marcus stepped forward, his voice cutting through the shocked silence of the auditorium. "Admiral Zephyra," he said, his tone respectful but confident, "I believe you mentioned something about beginning a new era." The Admiral looked at him, then at the impossible numbers still glowing on the holographic display, then back at him. "Yes," she said slowly. "Yes, I believe we did." As the auditorium began to buzz with excited conversation in dozens of languages, as reporters frantically transmitted updates across the galaxy, and as military leaders from every major civilization began making urgent calls to their governments, Marcus Chen stood quietly beside the ancient Forerunner scanner. He had known this moment would come eventually. Earth's government had suspected that humans might have certain advantages in military applications, advantages that their short time in the Federation hadn't yet revealed. They had sent him here not just as a cadet, but as a test. The test had succeeded beyond their wildest projections. But now came the real challenge. The galaxy was watching, and everyone wanted to know the same thing. What exactly were humans capable of, and what did that mean for everyone else? Marcus looked out at the crowd of beings staring at him with expressions ranging from awe to fear to calculating interest. Representatives of civilizations that had dominated galactic politics for millennia, now forced to reconsider everything they thought they knew about military potential. He smiled slightly. His instructors back on Earth had taught him that the first rule of warfare was to never reveal your full capabilities until the moment you needed them. The moment was coming. The emergency session of the Galactic Federation Council convened 6 hours after Marcus Chen's scanner reading sent shockwaves across the galaxy. The massive chamber on Nexus Prime, capital world of the Federation, buzzed with tension as representatives from 200 species took their designated positions. Chancellor Vexhai, the elderly Kronthak who had led the Federation for the past 2 decades, called the session to order with a thunderous strike of his ceremonial warhammer. At nearly 4 meters tall with arms like tree trunks, Vexhai commanded respect through presence alone. His scarred hide told the story of countless battles fought before politics claimed him. "Fellow representatives," his voice boomed through the translation matrices, "we convene this emergency session to address the unprecedented scanner reading recorded today during the Academy recruitment ceremony." Holographic displays throughout the chamber showed Marcus's test results, the impossible numbers still causing disbelief among many delegates. Conversations erupted in dozens of languages before Vexhai struck his hammer again, demanding silence. Ambassador Thrain of the Centaurian Empire rose from her position, her golden mane immaculately groomed despite the rushed nature of the session. The Centaurians had dominated Federation military leadership for over 3 centuries, their natural aggression and tactical brilliance making them the de facto protectors of galactic civilization. "Chancellor," Thrain began, her voice carrying the authority of someone born to command, The Centaurian Empire requests immediate clarification on the authenticity of these readings. The numbers shown today violate every known principle of quantum combat resonance measurement. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the chamber. Several species had built their entire political identity around their military capabilities. The suggestion that a relative newcomer like humanity might possess superior combat potential threatened the established order. Dr. Quintus materialized at the central podium, his ethereal form flickering slightly as he adjusted his projection equipment. As the Federation's chief scanner technician, his word carried immense weight in technical matters. "Honored delegates," Quintus began, his melodic voice somehow conveying both confidence and bewilderment, "I have spent the last 6 hours conducting every diagnostic protocol available. The scanner is functioning perfectly. The Forerunner technology shows no signs of malfunction or tampering." He gestured, and detailed technical readouts appeared on the displays. "Furthermore, I have analyzed the device's behavior during the human's test. The scanner wasn't just measuring standard combat resonance. It was accessing historical databases, running theoretical scenarios, and evaluating capabilities we didn't even know it could assess." Representative Zalkros of the Vorthan Collective slithered forward, his silver skin reflecting the chamber's lighting. "Dr. Quintus, are you suggesting that this device, which has functioned the same way for 5 centuries, suddenly developed new capabilities when testing a human?" "That is exactly what I'm suggesting," Quintus replied firmly. "The scanner appears to have recognized something in the human's neural patterns that triggered dormant protocols. Protocols that may have been designed by the Forerunners specifically for evaluating species like humanity." The chamber exploded into chaos. Delegates shouted questions and accusations while others demanded immediate action. The implications were staggering. If the Forerunners, the mysterious ancient civilization that had left technology throughout the galaxy before vanishing, had specifically designed protocols for humans, it suggested they had been monitoring species development for longer than anyone imagined. Admiral Zephyra entered the chamber, her blue scales still damp from the emergency transport that had brought her from the academy. She moved to the military briefing station, her expression grim. "Chancellor, honored delegates," she began, her voice cutting through the noise, "I must report additional developments. Since the scanner reading, our monitoring stations have detected unusual activity from several major powers outside the Federation." The chamber fell silent. The major powers referred to the 3 galactic civilizations that existed beyond Federation space. The hegemony, a militaristic empire that viewed the Federation as weak. The collective, a hive-mind species that sought to absorb all other life. And the Reapers, mysterious entities that emerged from dark space every few millennia to test galactic defenses. "The hegemony has mobilized 3 battle fleets and moved them toward our border," Zephyra continued. "Our intelligence suggests they intercepted the broadcast of today's ceremony. They appear to be concerned about human military potential." Ambassador Thrain leaned forward, her predatory instincts engaged. "Admiral, are you suggesting they view one human cadet as a threat?" "I'm suggesting they view what he represents as a threat," Zephyra clarified. "If humans possess this level of military potential, and if they can pass these capabilities to others through training or genetic enhancement, it could shift the balance of power throughout the galaxy." Dr. Lyreley materialized beside Quintus, her ethereal form glowing with urgency. "Honored delegates, I've completed a preliminary analysis of the human's psychological profile. The results are disturbing." New data appeared on the displays, showing complex psychological matrices that meant little to most delegates, but caused several military representatives to inhale sharply. The scanner detected cognitive patterns that suggest this individual can understand and predict the behavior of any intelligent species, Lyreley explained. "Not just through study or experience, but through some form of intuitive empathy that allows him to think like any opponent." She paused, allowing the implications to sink in. "Furthermore, his mind appears capable of simultaneous multi-track processing. He can develop strategies for ground combat while planning fleet movements, while analyzing diplomatic implications, while maintaining tactical awareness. It's as if his consciousness operates on multiple levels simultaneously." Representative Korath of the Draconian League, A massive reptilian being with scales like armor plating slammed his clawed fist on his desk. This is impossible. No single being can possess such capabilities. Yet the evidence suggests otherwise, Dr. Lyreley replied calmly. The scanner's historical analysis indicates that humans may have evolved under unique pressures that forced the development of extreme cognitive flexibility. Their planet's diverse environments, frequent conflicts between groups, and rapid technological advancement created evolutionary pressure for adaptability rather than specialization. Chancellor Vexhai studied the data with the eye of someone who had spent decades making life-or-death decisions. Doctor, in your professional opinion, is Marcus Chen unique among his species, or do other humans possess similar potential? The question that everyone wanted answered hung in the air like a physical presence. Based on the scanner's analysis, Lyreley said slowly, Marcus Chen appears to be exceptional even among humans. However, the baseline human neural architecture suggests that many of his species could develop similar capabilities given proper training and experience. The chamber erupted again, but this time with a different energy. Fear was replacing surprise as delegates began to understand the true implications. If humans could mass-produce military leaders of unprecedented capability, it could reshape galactic politics within a generation. Meanwhile, in a secure conference room deep within the Academy, Marcus Chen sat across from Director Hagen, the Academy's human administrator, and General Morrison, Earth's military attaché to the Federation. Both men looked exhausted, having spent hours fielding communications from Earth's government and Federation officials. Marcus, Director Hagen began, his voice heavy with responsibility. I need you to understand the situation we're all in now. Your test results have created a political crisis. Half the galaxy wants to study you, the other half wants to eliminate you as a threat. Marcus nodded calmly. At 22, he had already served 2 tours with Earth's Special Forces before being selected for the Academy program. He understood the realities of power politics better than most beings twice his age. Sir, he replied, with respect, this was always going to happen eventually. Humans have been hiding our true capabilities since we joined the Federation. Today just moved up the timeline. General Morrison leaned forward, his gray hair and lined face showing the stress of command. Son, what you're not understanding is the scale of what's happening. We've got 3 major galactic powers mobilizing fleets, 200 Federation species demanding explanations, and our own government scrambling to figure out how to handle this situation. And what would you like me to do about it, sir? Marcus asked, his tone respectful but direct. The 2 older men exchanged glances. They had been dreading this conversation, but events had forced their hand. Marcus, Hagen said slowly, we need to know what you're really capable of. Not what the scanner measured, not what our projections suggest, but what you can actually do. Marcus was quiet for a long moment, considering his words carefully. Finally, he spoke. During my time with Special Forces, I served with a multi-species unit. Centaurians, Vorthans, even a Kronthak. I studied their tactics, their thought processes, their cultural approaches to warfare. He paused, remembering. Within 6 months, I could predict their actions better than they could. Not because I was smarter, but because I understood how their minds worked. Their strengths, their blind spots, their instinctive reactions. General Morrison felt a chill run down his spine. Go on. Every human conflict in our history, every war, every battle, every strategic challenge has been between groups that thought differently, fought differently, had different advantages and weaknesses. We learned to adapt because we had to. Other species developed one approach to warfare and perfected it. We learned dozens. Marcus stood and walked to the room's large window, which offered a view of the Academy's training grounds. Hundreds of cadets from across the galaxy were conducting exercises, each group following the tactical doctrines of their species. The scanner didn't measure my combat capability, he said quietly. It measured my potential to understand and counter every form of warfare that exists, and to develop new forms that nobody has seen before. Director Hagen felt his stomach drop. Marcus, are you saying you could defeat any of these species in combat? Marcus turned back to face them, and for the first time, they saw something in his eyes that made both experienced military officers take an involuntary step back. It wasn't cruelty or aggression. It was the calm, analytical gaze of someone who saw every living thing as a puzzle to be solved. "Sir," Marcus said softly, "I'm saying I could defeat all of them, simultaneously if necessary." The silence stretched for nearly a minute before General Morrison found his voice. "Son," he said, his voice barely above a whisper, "please tell me you're not serious." Marcus's expression softened slightly. "General, I hope I never have to prove it, but the galaxy is about to become a very dangerous place for humanity. Other species are going to want to test us to see if the scanner was right, and when they do—" He looked back out the window at the alien cadets, training with weapons and tactics that had dominated galactic warfare for centuries. "When they do, they're going to learn that evolution is a harsh teacher, and humans learned from the harshest teacher of all." Back in the Federation Council chamber, Chancellor Vexhai was reading a priority message that had just arrived from his military intelligence staff. His scarred face went pale as he processed the information. "Honored delegates," he announced, his voice cutting through the ongoing debates, "I have received urgent intelligence that changes our situation dramatically." The chamber fell silent. Long-range sensors have detected a massive gravitational anomaly in the void sector. Analysis suggests it matches the signature of a Reaper emergence. Gasps and expressions of fear rippled through the chamber. The Reapers appeared every 5 to 7 centuries, testing the galaxy's defenses with technology that made Federation ships look like children's toys. The last emergence had cost the lives of over 1 billion Federation citizens before the entities withdrew to their unknown realm. Furthermore, Vexhai continued, the anomaly's timing suggests the Reapers detected the same quantum resonance event that has captured our attention today. The implications hit the chamber like a physical blow. If the Reapers were emerging now, it meant they viewed the discovery of human military potential as significant enough to investigate personally. Ambassador Thrain rose slowly, her golden face grim with understanding. "Chancellor, if the Reapers are coming, we need every military advantage we can find." "Indeed," Vexhai agreed, "which brings us to an unavoidable conclusion." He gestured toward the displays showing Marcus Chen's test results. "We need to determine whether this human represents hope or disaster for our civilization, and we need to determine it quickly." As emergency sessions began across the galaxy, as fleets mobilized along ancient borders, and as beings who had lived for centuries tried to process the implications of one young human's test scores, Marcus Chen stood in his assigned quarters at the Academy. He was reading reports from Earth's intelligence services, communications that painted a picture of a galaxy suddenly much more dangerous than it had been 24 hours earlier. Other species were mobilizing, testing their defenses, preparing for conflicts that might never come but could devastate entire civilizations if they did. Marcus closed the files and looked out at the alien skyline of the Academy world. Tomorrow, his real training would begin, but he suspected that everything he learned in classrooms and simulators would pale compared to the lessons the galaxy was about to teach him. The scanner had revealed his potential. Now he would have to decide what to do with it. And somewhere in the dark spaces between stars, ancient entities that had witnessed the rise and fall of 1,000 civilizations were beginning their journey toward a small world called Earth, curious about the species that had finally produced what they had been waiting to find. The galaxy would never be the same. 3 weeks after the scanner incident, the Galactic Defense Academy had transformed into something resembling a fortress under siege. Military ships from a dozen species patrolled the orbital space around the Academy world, while on the surface, security teams from every major civilization maintained a careful watch over the institution that had suddenly become the center of galactic attention. Marcus Chen walked through the Academy's corridors, acutely aware of the stares and whispered conversations that followed him everywhere. Fellow cadets who had once ignored him now watched his every movement with expressions ranging from awe to fear to poorly concealed hostility. The simple act of going to breakfast had become an exercise in navigation through political minefields. In the Academy's primary training center, Instructor Corvanis called the morning assembly to order. The massive Kronthak's scarred hide and cybernetic arm modifications marked him as a veteran of the border wars, and his reputation for turning soft recruits into hardened warriors was legendary throughout Federation space. "Cadets," Corvanis boomed, his voice carrying easily across the vast training hall, Recent events have reminded us all that warfare is not merely about following established doctrine. True combat effectiveness requires the ability to adapt, to think beyond conventional parameters, and to find victory where others see only defeat. His gaze settled on Marcus, who stood at attention among his fellow cadets with characteristic calm. Today, we will be conducting live combat exercises using Federation standard protocols. Each cadet will face opponents from different species backgrounds, using equipment and tactics appropriate to their cultural military traditions. Excited murmurs rippled through the group. Live combat exercises were typically reserved for advanced cadets, not first-year students still learning basic protocol. But the Academy's leadership had decided that extraordinary circumstances required extraordinary training methods. Furthermore, Corvanis continued, these exercises will be observed by military analysts from across the Federation. Your performance today will be evaluated not just for Academy purposes, but as data for understanding how different species approach combat challenges. Marcus understood the subtext immediately. This wasn't just training. It was a test designed to see if his scanner readings translated into actual combat effectiveness. The observers weren't here to evaluate all the cadets. They were here to see if humanity's military potential lived up to the impossible numbers the ancient device had produced. The first exercise pitted Centaurian cadets against Vorthan opponents in a simulated urban warfare scenario. Marcus watched from the observation deck as golden-maned warriors charged through the streets with characteristic aggression, only to be outmaneuvered by silver-skinned Vorthans who used superior technology and stealth tactics to control key positions. The Centaurians fought with honor and courage, their natural leadership abilities allowing them to coordinate complex maneuvers even under fire. But the Vorthans' technological advantages and patient tactical approach ultimately proved decisive. Predictable, Marcus murmured to himself, then caught himself as he realized Admiral Zephyra was standing nearby. Cadet Chen, the Admiral said, her blue-scaled features unreadable, you find the exercise predictable. Marcus stood at attention. Yes, Admiral, the Centaurians are fighting according to their cultural preferences, direct assault, aggressive leadership, honor-based tactics. The Vorthans are using their species' natural advantages, technological sophistication, patience, logical progression. Neither side is adapting to counter their opponent's strengths. Admiral Zephyra studied him carefully. And what would you do differently? If I were commanding the Centaurians, I would use their aggression as a feint while positioning stealth units to target Vorthan technology nodes. If I were commanding the Vorthans, I would exploit Centaurian honor codes by creating scenarios where retreat would be shameful but tactically necessary. The Admiral made a note on her personal datapad. You analyzed their cultural psychology and identified exploitable weaknesses within 30 seconds of observation. Yes, Admiral. Cadet Chen, she said slowly, tomorrow you will participate in a special exercise. You will command a mixed-species unit against veteran Federation officers in a strategic scenario. Marcus felt his stomach tighten. A strategic scenario meant fleet-level combat, the kind of exercise normally reserved for senior academy students with years of tactical training. And veteran Federation officers meant he would be facing beings with decades of actual combat experience. Admiral, he said carefully, may I ask what the scenario will involve? You will be defending a Federation colony world against a simulated hegemony invasion fleet. Your resources will be limited, your time constrained, and your opponents will be using actual hegemony tactical doctrines based on captured intelligence. The observation deck fell silent. Other cadets and instructors had overheard the conversation, and everyone understood the implications. The hegemony was the Federation's most dangerous enemy, a militaristic empire that had been probing Federation defenses for decades. Their tactics were ruthless, their technology formidable, and their strategic thinking had evolved through centuries of constant warfare. Marcus nodded. I understand, Admiral. May I select my own team? You may choose from any cadets currently enrolled at the Academy. However, she paused, her expression becoming serious, you should know that many species have specifically requested that their cadets not be assigned to work under human command. The political implications were obvious. Many Federation species were still processing the revelation of human military potential, and some viewed cooperation as potentially dangerous to their own interests. "Understood, Admiral. I'll work with whoever is willing." That evening, Marcus sat in the Academy's mess hall, picking at a meal that had grown cold while he studied tactical databases on his personal tablet. The hall was bustling with activity, but he noticed that the usual interspecies mingling had decreased significantly since his scanner reading. Centaurians sat with Centaurians, Vorthans with Vorthans, and so on. "Mind if I join you?" Marcus looked up to see Kara Thorne, one of the few other human cadets at the Academy. She was a year older, a former Earth Navy pilot who had transferred to the Academy after distinguishing herself in anti-piracy operations. "Of course," Marcus said, gesturing to the empty seat across from him. "How's everyone handling the excitement?" Kara sat down with her own meal tray, her expression wry. "Well, let's see. Half the cadets think you're some kind of military messiah, the other half think you're a dangerous freak, and the instructors are all trying to figure out if humans are about to take over the galaxy. And what do you think?" Kara was quiet for a moment, studying his face. "I think you're exactly what Earth hoped you would be, and I think that scares everyone, including you." Marcus set down his fork and really looked at her. Kara had been at the Academy for 6 months before his arrival, long enough to understand the political dynamics that shaped every interaction between species. "Kara," he said slowly, "what do you know about the real reason humans joined the Federation?" She glanced around, making sure their conversation couldn't be overheard. "Officially, we wanted to be part of the galactic community, learn from advanced civilizations, contribute to universal peace." "And unofficially?" "Unofficially," she said, leaning closer, "our government figured out that the galaxy is a lot more dangerous than most Federation citizens realize. The hegemony, the collective, the Reapers, were surrounded by threats that could wipe out human civilization without even trying hard." Marcus nodded. "So we needed allies, but we also needed to prove we were worth protecting." "Exactly. And now you've proven that we're not just worth protecting, we might be worth fearing." Their conversation was interrupted by the arrival of Valorian, the Centaurian cadet whose record-breaking scanner score had been overshadowed by Marcus's impossible reading. The golden-maned warrior approached their table with 2 companions, his expression carefully neutral. "Human," Valorian said, his use of Marcus's species name rather than his personal name making his attitude clear. "I have heard about tomorrow's exercise." Marcus stood, recognizing the challenge in the Centaurian's tone. "Valorian, are you volunteering for my team?" "No," Valorian replied firmly. "I am here to inform you that the Centaurian delegation will be watching your performance with great interest. My people have led Federation military forces for 3 centuries. We are curious to see if your scanner readings represent genuine capability or merely a technological anomaly." The mess hall was beginning to quiet as other cadets noticed the confrontation developing. Marcus could feel hundreds of eyes watching, waiting to see how he would respond to what was essentially a formal challenge from one of the Academy's most prestigious cadets. "Valorian," Marcus said calmly, "I respect the Centaurian military tradition. Your people have earned their reputation through centuries of honorable service." Valorian's companions relaxed slightly, interpreting Marcus's words as deference. But Valorian himself continued to study the human's expression, sensing something beneath the diplomatic language. "However," Marcus continued, "military leadership isn't about tradition or reputation. It's about results. Tomorrow's exercise will provide those results." Now it was Marcus's turn to study the Centaurian. "Unless, of course, you'd prefer to be part of the team rather than just an observer. I could use an officer with your tactical training." The challenge was subtle but unmistakable. By offering Valorian a subordinate position, Marcus was asserting command authority while appearing to show respect. It was the kind of psychological maneuver that Centaurian honor codes made difficult to refuse without appearing cowardly. Valorian's golden eyes narrowed as he recognized the trap. "You wish me to serve under human command?" "I wish you to help me defend a Federation world against enemy attack," Marcus replied. "The command structure is irrelevant compared to the lives at stake." Several other cadets had moved closer to listen, including representatives from most major species. They understood that this conversation was about more than an academy exercise. It was about the future of Federation military command. Valorian was silent for nearly a minute, clearly wrestling with conflicting impulses. His cultural programming demanded that he assert Centaurian superiority, but his military training recognized the strategic value of participating in what was likely to be a historically significant exercise. Finally, he spoke. "Very well, human, I will join your team. But understand this, I follow your orders only for the duration of the exercise. And if you fail, the entire galaxy will know that human military potential is nothing more than scanner error and political manipulation." Marcus extended his hand in the human gesture of agreement. After a moment's hesitation, Valorian grasped it. "Understood," Marcus said. "And when we succeed, the galaxy will know that true military leadership comes from understanding your enemy better than they understand themselves." As word of the exchange spread throughout the academy, cadets from other species began approaching Marcus to volunteer for his team. Not all of them, but enough to give him options. A young Vorthan named Zix volunteered his expertise in electronic warfare. A draconian female called Sira offered her knowledge of heavy weapon systems. Even an Etherian named Whisper, despite her species' pacifist tendencies, requested assignment to intelligence analysis. By the end of the evening, Marcus had assembled a team of 12 cadets representing 7 different species. It was far from a complete military unit, but it would allow him to test his theories about multi-species tactical integration. More importantly, it would allow the galaxy to see whether human military potential represented an opportunity for cooperation or a threat requiring response. As Marcus returned to his quarters to begin planning for the most important day of his life, he was unaware that his conversation with Valorian had been recorded by Federation intelligence services and transmitted to military leaders across the galaxy. In the Hegemony's military command center, Admiral Rex studied the recording with the cold calculation that had made him the Empire's most feared strategic planner. "So," he said to his assembled staff, "the humans believe they understand warfare better than species who have practiced it for millennia." He gestured to the holographic display showing Marcus's team composition. "They will learn otherwise. Begin preparation of Battle Group 7. If these exercises prove that human military capabilities are genuine, we will need to respond before they have time to spread their knowledge throughout the Federation." The hegemony had not survived for 8 centuries by allowing potential threats to develop unopposed. And if humanity represented a genuine military revolution, it would have to be crushed before it could grow strong enough to threaten imperial security. Tomorrow's exercise would determine whether humanity deserved respect or elimination. Marcus Chen spent the night reviewing tactical databases and psychological profiles of every species likely to be represented in the opposing force. But in the back of his mind, he knew that the real test wouldn't be whether he could win a simulated battle. The real test would be whether he could win it in a way that convinced the galaxy that humans were allies worth having, rather than enemies that needed to be eliminated. The scanner had revealed his potential. Tomorrow would determine his destiny. The Academy's primary simulation center had been converted into the most sophisticated military exercise facility in Federation history. Banks of quantum computers processed real-time tactical data, while holographic projectors created a perfect replica of Kepler 442b, a Federation colony whirled on the border with hegemony space. Representatives from every major civilization crowded the observation galleries, while encrypted quantum-link broadcasts carried the exercise to military commands across the galaxy. This wasn't just a training event anymore. It had become a demonstration that would influence Federation policy for decades to come. Marcus stood in the command center assigned to his team, studying the tactical displays that showed their starting position. The scenario was brutally simple. Defend Kepler 442b against a hegemony invasion force using limited Federation resources. Success was measured by civilian survival rates and preservation of critical infrastructure. His team occupied stations around the central holographic display, each cadet representing their species' typical military specializations. Valorian commanded ground forces, his golden mane bristling with anticipation. Zix managed electronic warfare systems, his silver skin gleaming as data streams flowed through his neural interfaces. Sira handled heavy weapons deployment, her draconian heritage giving her an intuitive understanding of firepower applications. Initial scenario parameters: announced the exercise controller, Admiral Korath himself overseeing the simulation. Hegemony battle group approaching Kepler 442b. Estimated 27 vessels including 3 dreadnoughts, multiple cruiser squadrons, and assault transports carrying ground forces. Your defense consists of 6 Federation patrol ships, orbital defense platforms, and garrison forces on the planet's surface. Valorian studied the display with growing concern. The odds are impossible. 3-to-1 ship disadvantage, and hegemony vessels typically outgun Federation designs by 30%. Conventional tactics would fail, Zix agreed, his analysis systems processing probability matrices. Standard Federation defense doctrine calls for evacuation and strategic withdrawal. Marcus remained silent, watching the approaching enemy fleet and considering options that his teammates hadn't yet recognized. Around him, the other cadets waited for orders, while in the observation galleries, military leaders from across the galaxy leaned forward to see how humanity's supposed military genius would handle an impossible situation. "Sira," Marcus said finally, "what's the maximum effective range of the orbital defense platforms?" The draconian female consulted her weapons databases. Approximately 2.3 million kilometers with standard antimatter torpedoes. Why? And the accuracy at that range? Against maneuvering targets, less than 15% probability of hit. Marcus nodded, then turned to Zix. The hegemony fleet is using standard approach vectors. Can you predict their exact position when they reach firing range of our platforms? Zix's neural interfaces flickered with activity. Yes, with 97% accuracy, but engagement at maximum range would be futile. Not if we're not trying to hit them, Marcus replied, his fingers moving across the tactical display. We're going to create an artificial asteroid field. The team stared at him in confusion while in the observation galleries. Military analysts began frantically taking notes. Explain, Valorian demanded, his Centaurian instincts uncomfortable with tactics he couldn't immediately understand. Marcus gestured to the display, showing the space between the orbital platforms and the approaching fleet. The asteroid field in this system contains significant metallic content. We target the largest asteroids at maximum range, using platform weapons to break them into smaller fragments. Understanding began to dawn on several faces as Marcus continued. The hegemony fleet will assume our shots missed. They won't expect us to continue firing at empty space until they realize we're creating a debris field that forces them into predictable navigation corridors. Whisper, the Etherian intelligence specialist, spoke up for the first time. The debris will force them to consolidate their formation, reducing their tactical flexibility and making them vulnerable to concentrated fire. Exactly. And while they're dealing with navigation challenges, our patrol ships will use the debris field as cover to close distance and engage at optimal range. It was an unconventional approach that violated standard Federation tactical doctrine, but Marcus's team could see the logic. Rather than meeting superior force with inferior force, they were changing the battlefield conditions to neutralize enemy advantages. Begin implementation, Marcus ordered. Sira, target asteroids at grid coordinates I'm transmitting. Maximum dispersion pattern. Valorian, prepare ground forces for extended siege. This won't stop their invasion, but it will buy us time to deal with their ground assault. As his team began executing the plan, Marcus turned his attention to the real challenge of the exercise. The orbital defense might delay the hegemony fleet, but it wouldn't stop them. Eventually, enemy forces would reach the planet's surface, and that's where the battle would truly be won or lost. In the observation gallery, Admiral Korath watched the developing tactical situation with growing interest. The humans' approach was unlike anything in Federation tactical databases, yet it showed clear understanding of both physics and psychology. He's not trying to win a traditional battle, Admiral Zephyra observed. He's creating conditions that force the enemy to fight on his terms. Dr. Lyreley monitored the psychological profiles of Marcus's team, noting how quickly they had adapted to his unconventional leadership style. The other cadets are responding to his commands without hesitation, despite coming from species with very different military traditions. More concerning, added Ambassador Thrain from the Centaurian delegation, is that his tactics are working. On the main display, the hegemony fleet had indeed encountered the artificial debris field and was being forced to adjust their approach vector exactly as Marcus had predicted. The lead dreadnought had already sustained minor damage from unexpected impacts, and the entire fleet formation was compacting to navigate the hazardous space. Federation patrol ships, Marcus's voice carried through the observation gallery via communication links. Execute attack pattern Chen 1. The 6 Federation ships emerged from behind debris clusters in perfect coordination, their combined firepower focused on the most isolated hegemony vessels. Within minutes, 2 enemy cruisers were destroyed and a third severely damaged. But the victory came at a cost. Hegemony return fire eliminated 3 Federation ships and damaged the orbital platforms. The enemy fleet, though bloodied, continued toward the planet. Phase 2, Marcus announced to his team. Ground defense preparation. On the planet's surface, Valorian coordinated defensive positions, while Sierra emplaced heavy weapons at strategic choke points. But Marcus's real focus was on something his teammates hadn't yet understood. He was analyzing the hegemony ground assault patterns to identify their operational priorities. Zix, Marcus called. I need complete intelligence on hegemony ground force composition. What's their standard invasion protocol? The Vorthan's analysis systems processed available data. Primary assault forces focus on capturing strategic infrastructure, power plants, communication centers, government facilities. Secondary forces establish perimeter control and civilian management zones. Standard doctrine, Marcus mused, which means they're thinking like conquerors rather than destroyers. Whisper looked up from her intelligence console. Commander, I don't understand the distinction. Conquerors want to preserve valuable assets. Destroyers just want to eliminate threats. Marcus's fingers danced across his command interface, adjusting defensive positions in ways that seemed to ignore tactical common sense. The hegemony isn't here to glass the planet from orbit. They want to capture it intact, which means they have to follow predictable patterns. As the first hegemony transports entered the atmosphere, Marcus revealed the true brilliance of his strategy. Instead of fortifying the locations the enemy wanted to capture, he had evacuated them and prepared them as elaborate traps. All units, he broadcasted to his ground forces, execute Trojan Protocol. Hegemony assault troops stormed what appeared to be defended positions, only to discover they were attacking empty buildings rigged with explosives and surveillance equipment. Meanwhile, the real defensive positions remained hidden, allowing Federation forces to observe enemy movements and identify command structures. Impossible, whispered Admiral Korath, watching the exercise unfold with growing amazement. He's using their own tactical doctrine against them. Within 2 hours, the simulated hegemony invasion had been systematically dismantled. Their fleet, forced into unfavorable positions by the debris field, had suffered 70% casualties from coordinated attacks by surviving Federation vessels. Their ground forces, scattered across a planet that refused to behave according to their operational expectations, found themselves isolated and surrounded. The final stroke came when Marcus used captured intelligence to locate the hegemony fleet command ship and coordinate a surgical strike that eliminated their senior leadership. Exercise terminated, Admiral Korath announced, his voice carrying a mixture of amazement and concern. Defending force achieves total victory with minimal civilian casualties and infrastructure damage. The observation galleries erupted in stunned conversation as military representatives from across the galaxy tried to process what they had witnessed. The impossible had become routine. A first-year academy cadet had defeated veteran officers using tactics that violated every established principle of Federation military doctrine. But it was the post-exercise analysis that truly sent shockwaves through the gathered observers. Tactical assessment, Dr. Quintus announced, his ethereal form flickering with excitement, indicates that Cadet Chen's strategy incorporated elements from 17 different species' military traditions, combined them in ways that exploited psychological and technical vulnerabilities specific to hegemony doctrine, and adapted in real time to changing battlefield conditions. Admiral Zephyra stood to address the gallery. Furthermore, Analysis of team communication patterns shows that Cadet Chen achieved unprecedented coordination between species that typically have difficulty working together in mixed units. The implications were staggering. If humans could not only understand and counter enemy tactics, but also unite Federation species more effectively than they had ever been united before, it represented a fundamental shift in galactic military potential. In the simulation center, Marcus's team was celebrating their victory when Valorian approached him with an expression the human couldn't quite read. "Human," the Centaurian said formally, then paused. "Marcus," he corrected himself, "I owe you an apology." Marcus looked up from the tactical displays he was still studying. For what? For assuming that military excellence was defined by tradition rather than effectiveness. Valorian's golden eyes held a respect that hadn't been there before. "You didn't just win this exercise, you showed us a new way of thinking about warfare itself." Similar conversations were happening throughout the team as cadets from different species processed the experience of working under human leadership. They had expected to follow orders. Instead, they had participated in something closer to collaborative problem-solving. But even as his teammates celebrated, Marcus was thinking about the larger implications of what had just happened. The exercise had been observed by every major military power in the galaxy, and his victory would be analyzed by strategic planners from the Federation to the hegemony to powers he had never heard of. He had proven that the scanner's readings were accurate. Humans did possess unprecedented military potential. But he had also painted a target on his species that would attract attention from entities far more dangerous than academy instructors and political observers. In the depths of space, in ships that existed between dimensions, ancient entities that had witnessed the rise and fall of countless civilizations took note of the tactical patterns displayed in the exercise. The Reapers had been moving toward Federation space for weeks, drawn by the quantum resonance signature that had first appeared during Marcus's scanner reading. Now they understood why that signature had seemed so familiar. The last species to show such tactical flexibility, such cognitive adaptability, such potential for military evolution, had been the Forerunners themselves. And the Reapers had been created specifically to test whether any species could match Forerunner capabilities. It appeared that test was about to begin again. As Marcus Chen left the simulation center, surrounded by teammates who now looked at him with a mixture of awe and camaraderie, he felt the weight of galactic attention settling on his shoulders like a physical presence. The scanner had revealed his potential. The exercise had proven his capability. Now he would have to discover what price the galaxy would demand for the knowledge that humanity had evolved into something that could reshape the balance of power among the stars. Behind him, in the observation galleries, military leaders from dozens of species were making urgent communications to their home governments. The conversation was no longer about whether humans represented a threat or an opportunity. The conversation was about what to do about them before they became too powerful to control. The emergency klaxons began wailing at 3:47 hours Academy time, their harsh notes cutting through the night silence like blades. Marcus Chen jerked awake in his quarters, military instincts honed by years of training bringing him to full alertness within seconds. The klaxon pattern was one he had never heard before, not a drill, not a standard emergency, but something designated as Priority Alpha, immediate threat to Academy and Federation space. Emergency lighting bathed the corridors in red as Marcus joined the stream of cadets and instructors rushing toward emergency stations. The Academy's communication system crackled to life with Admiral Zephira's voice, her usual calm replaced by barely controlled urgency. "All personnel to emergency stations immediately. This is not a drill. Unknown vessels have emerged from hyperspace in the outer system. All military units are to prepare for possible hostile action." Marcus reached the primary operations center to find controlled chaos. Holographic displays showed the Academy system's outer edge, where massive gravitational distortions marked the emergence of ships unlike anything in Federation databases. The vessels seemed to exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously, their forms shifting between solid matter and pure energy in patterns that hurt to look at directly. "Reaper emergence confirmed," announced Admiral Korath, his massive frame rigid with tension. 15 vessels, configuration unknown, technology beyond current Federation analysis capability. The word Reaper sent ice through the veins of everyone present. The mysterious entities that appeared every few centuries to test galactic civilizations had become legend, their previous visitations recorded as historical disasters that claimed billions of lives. Director Hagen appeared at Marcus's side, his face pale with stress. "Marcus, you need to see this." He led the human cadet to a specialized monitoring station, where Dr. Quintus was analyzing the quantum signatures of the emerging vessels. The Reapers appeared exactly 4.7 minutes after our long-range sensors detected quantum resonance emissions from their fleet, Quintus explained, his ethereal form flickering with agitation. Emissions that matched the signature profile of your scanner reading 3 weeks ago. The implication hit Marcus like a physical blow. "They came because of me." "Not just because of you," Dr. Lyreley interjected, materializing beside them. "Because of what you represent. Our analysis suggests the Reapers are drawn to quantum signatures that indicate significant evolutionary leaps in military capability." Admiral Zephyra approached their group, her expression grim. "Cadet Chen, I need to know, is there anything about your scanner reading or your exercise performance that might explain why the Reapers would consider humanity a threat worth investigating?" Marcus was silent for a moment, processing implications he had hoped never to face. Finally, he spoke. "Admiral, the scanner didn't just measure my current capabilities. It measured my potential to understand and counter any form of warfare that exists. That includes Reaper technology." The operations center fell silent except for the hum of electronic systems and the distant wail of emergency klaxons. "You're saying you can fight them?" Admiral Korath's voice carried a mixture of hope and disbelief. "I'm saying I can understand them," Marcus replied carefully. "But understanding an enemy and having the resources to fight them are very different things." A new alarm joined the cacophony as long-range sensors detected additional activity. The main holographic display updated to show new gravitational distortions throughout the galaxy, not just in Federation space, but near the borders of the hegemony, the collective, and other major powers. "Galaxy-wide emergence," reported the sensor operator, a young Vorthan whose silver features had gone pale with fear. "Preliminary count suggests over 200 Reaper vessels appearing simultaneously across all inhabited systems." Admiral Zephyra closed her eyes for a moment, the weight of command settling on her shoulders like a physical burden. When she opened them again, her expression had transformed into the calm determination that had made her one of the Federation's most respected commanders. "General quarters," she announced. "All Academy personnel to combat stations. Communications, establish quantum link connection with Federation Central Command. We're going to coordinate a galactic defense." "Admiral," Marcus said quietly, "there's something else you need to know." She turned to him, recognizing the tone of someone about to deliver unwelcome news. "The exercise I completed yesterday wasn't just a simulation. It was a test of human tactical capabilities under realistic conditions." Marcus paused, choosing his words carefully. "Earth's government has been preparing for this possibility since we joined the Federation." The admission sent shockwaves through the assembled officers. Admiral Korath stepped forward, his cybernetic arm whirring as servos adjusted to his increased tension. "You're telling us that humanity knew the Reapers would come." "We knew that revealing our military potential would attract attention from powers beyond the Federation," Marcus replied. "Our historical analysis suggested that quantum combat resonance readings like mine would trigger some kind of response." Dr. Lyreley floated closer, her ethereal form pulsing with agitation. "Marcus, what else has Earth been preparing for?" Before Marcus could answer, the communication systems erupted with incoming messages from across the galaxy. "Federation worlds under attack, hegemony fleets engaging Reaper vessels, reports of devastation from civilizations that had never before encountered technology beyond their understanding." But then, through the chaos of emergency communications, a new signal emerged. Clear, powerful, and directed specifically at the Academy's communication array. The signal was from the Reapers themselves. Admiral Zephyra ordered the message displayed on the main holographic system. What appeared defied every expectation the gathered officers had held about their ancient nemesis. The figure that materialized was humanoid, but wrong in ways that suggested artificial intelligence rather than organic life. Its form seemed to exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously, but its voice was clear and precise. Galactic Defense Academy, it spoke, each word carrying harmonics that resonated through quantum space. We are the Reapers. We seek audience with the human designated Marcus Chen. The operations center fell silent. Every eye turned to Marcus, who stood frozen as he processed the implications of being personally summoned by entities that could destroy civilizations. Furthermore, the Reaper continued, we offer temporary cessation of hostilities against all galactic civilizations pending this audience. The human will present himself to our vessel within 6 standard hours. The hologram flickered and vanished, leaving the operations center in stunned silence. Admiral Zephyra was the first to recover. Absolutely not. We don't negotiate with entities that threaten galactic civilization, and we certainly don't hand over Federation personnel. Admiral, Marcus said quietly, with respect, I don't think we have a choice. He gestured to the displays showing Reaper attacks across the galaxy. They're not negotiating. They're demonstrating their capability to destroy everything we care about unless I comply. It's a trap, Valorian declared, entering the operations center with several other cadets who had been granted emergency clearance. No warrior allows themselves to be captured by the enemy. Marcus looked at his teammate, nodding the mixture of concern and determination in the Centaurian's golden eyes. Valorian, this isn't about warrior honor. This is about survival of our civilizations. Kara Thorne appeared at his side, her expression grim. Marcus, if you go to them, you're not coming back. If I don't go to them, billions of beings across the galaxy will die, Marcus replied. The Reapers have technology that makes our most advanced weapons look like stone clubs. Our only advantage is that they want something from me specifically. Admiral Zephyra studied the tactical displays showing the locations of Reaper vessels throughout the galaxy. What do you think they want? Marcus was quiet for a long moment, considering everything he had learned about Reaper behavior from historical records and current observations. I think, he said slowly, they want to understand how humanity evolved the cognitive flexibility that the scanner detected, and I think they're willing to destroy galactic civilization to get that understanding. Dr. Quintus materialized beside them, his form flickering with urgency. Marcus, I've been analyzing Reaper quantum signatures. There are patterns in their technology that match Forerunner design principles. What are you suggesting? Admiral Zephyra asked. I'm suggesting that the Reapers may be Forerunner technology, automated systems designed to monitor galactic development and respond when species evolve beyond predetermined parameters. The implications were staggering. If the Reapers were Forerunner constructs, they represented technology millions of years more advanced than anything the current galaxy possessed. Fighting them would be like Stone Age humans trying to defeat modern military forces. All the more reason for me to go, Marcus said firmly. If they're Forerunner technology, they're operating according to programmed parameters. That means they can be understood, predicted, and potentially influenced. Admiral Korath slammed his cybernetic fist on a nearby control console. This is madness. We don't send cadets to face threats that could destroy the galaxy. We do if that cadet represents our only hope of survival, Marcus replied calmly. He looked around the operations center at the faces of beings who had become more than teammates or instructors. They had become something approaching family. I need to ask all of you to trust me one more time. Trust that human cognitive flexibility isn't just about warfare. It's about adaptation, understanding, and finding solutions where none should exist. Admiral Zephyra studied his expression for a long moment, seeing something in his eyes that reminded her why the ancient scanner had produced readings that defied possibility. What do you need? She asked finally. I need complete tactical and technical data on every Reaper encounter in recorded history. I need psychological profiles of Forerunner civilization based on their archaeological remains. And I need my team. Valorian stepped forward immediately. My sword is yours, whatever the risk. Zix appeared beside him, his silver features gleaming with determination. My knowledge is at your service. One by one, the other cadets who had served under Marcus during the exercise volunteered to accompany him. despite knowing that approaching a Reaper vessel might well be suicide. "No," Marcus said firmly. "This is something I have to do alone. But I need you all here, coordinating with Federation forces, implementing the tactical principles we've discovered together." He looked directly at Admiral Zephyra. "If I don't return, the galaxy is going to need every advantage it can find. Human tactical flexibility can be taught to other species, but only if there are teachers left to pass on the knowledge." 6 hours later, Marcus Chen stood in the shuttle bay of the Academy's primary facility, wearing a simple Federation uniform and carrying nothing but a personal datapad containing everything known about Reaper technology and Forerunner history. The shuttle that would carry him to the Reaper vessel was a standard Academy transport, its simple design contrasting sharply with the impossible geometries of the ship he was about to board. Admiral Zephyra performed the final pre-flight check personally. "Marcus," she said quietly, "if this is the last time we speak, I want you to know that you've already changed the galaxy. The tactical principles you've demonstrated, the way you've united different species under common purpose, that knowledge will survive even if you don't." Marcus nodded, understanding the weight behind her words. "Admiral, if I don't make it back, tell Earth that humanity's greatest strength isn't our ability to fight. It's our ability to understand our enemies well enough to find peaceful solutions." As the shuttle lifted off, carrying Marcus toward a rendezvous with entities that existed beyond normal space-time, the Academy's Operations Center coordinated the largest military mobilization in galactic history. Federation fleets, hegemony battle groups, even collective constructs were forming unprecedented alliances to face the Reaper threat. Species that had been enemies for centuries were sharing tactical data and coordinating defense strategies, united by the realization that their survival depended on cooperation. The changes that Marcus had begun with a scanner reading and demonstrated through tactical exercises were spreading across the galaxy, transforming not just military doctrine, but the fundamental relationships between civilizations. Whether he survived his encounter with the Reapers or not, humanity's gift to the galaxy was already reshaping the future of warfare, diplomacy, and interspecies cooperation. As Marcus's shuttle approached the Reaper vessel, its impossible geometries shifting like a living thing, he reviewed everything he had learned about tactical analysis, enemy psychology, and the art of finding solutions where none should exist. The scanner had revealed his potential. The exercises had proven his capability. Now he would discover whether human cognitive flexibility was sufficient to understand entities that existed beyond the normal boundaries of space, time, and logic. The galaxy watched and waited, and hoped that one young human's ability to think differently might be enough to save them all. In the depths of the Reaper vessel, ancient systems analyzed the approaching shuttle and its passenger. For the first time in millions of years, the constructs that guarded galactic civilization faced a species that reminded them of their creators. The test was about to begin,